Frank Miller is an American writer, artist, and film director best known for his dark comic book stories and graphic novels such as Ronin, Daredevil, Born Again, The Dark Knight Returns, Sin City and 300. He also directed the film version of The Spirit, shared directing duties with Robert Rodriguez on Sin City and produced the film 300. He is also known for creating the comic book character Elektra. Early life: Miller was born in Olney, Maryland on January 27, 1957, and raised in Montpelier, Vermont, the fifth of 7 children of a nurse mother and a carpenter-electrician father. His family was Irish Catholic. Career: Miller grew up a comics fan, with a letter he wrote to Marvel Comics being published. His first published work was at Western Publishing's Gold Key Comics imprint, gotten at the recommendation of comics artist Neal Adams, to whom a fledgling Miller, after moving to New York City, had shown samples and received much critique and occasional informal lessons. Though no published credits appear, he is tentatively credited with a 3-page story Royal Feast in the licensed TV series comic book The Twilight Zone No. 84, by an unknown writer, and is credited with a 5-page Endless Cloud, also by an unknown writer, in the following issue. By the time of the latter, however, Miller had his first confirmed credit in writer Wyatt Ginn's 6-page Deliver Me from D-Day, inked by Danny Bullen AD, in Weird War Tales No. 64. One-time Marvel editor-in-chief Jim Shooter recalled Miller going to DC Comics after having broken in with a small job from Western Publishing, I think. Thus emboldened, he went to DC, and after getting savaged by Joe Orlando, got in to see art director Vinnie Coletta, who recognized talent and arranged for him to get a 1-page war comic job. The Grand Comics database does not list this job. There may have been a 1-page DC story, or Shooter may have misremembered the page count or have been referring to the 2-page story, by writer Roger Mackenzie, Slowly, Painfully, You Dig Your Way from the Cold, Choking Debris. In Weird War Tales No. 68. Other fledgling work at DC included the 6-page The Greatest Story Never Told, by writer Paul Kupperberg, in that same issue, and the 5-page The Edge of History, written by Elliot S. Magan, in Unknown Soldier No. 219. His first work for Marvel Comics was penciling the 17-page story The Master Assassin of Mars, Part 3 in John Carter, Warlord of Mars No. 18. At Marvel, Miller would settle in as a regular fill-in and cover artist, working on a variety of titles. One of these jobs was drawing Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man No. 27 Euro 28, which guest-starred Daredevil. At the time, sales of the Daredevil title were poor. However, Miller saw something in the character he liked and asked editor-in-chief Jim Shooter if he could work on Daredevil's regular title. Shooter agreed and made Miller the new penciler on the title. As Miller recalled in 2008, "When I first showed up in New York, I showed up with a bunch of comics, a bunch of samples, of guys in trench coats and old cars and such. And, comics editors said, where are the guys in tights? And I had to learn how to do it. But as soon as a title came along, when Daredevil signature artist Gene Cullen left Daredevil, I realized it was my secret in to do crime comics with a superhero in them. And so I lobbied for the title and got it." Daredevil and the early 1980s. Daredevil No. 158, Miller's debut on that title, was the finale of an ongoing story written by Roger Mackenzie and inked by Klaus Janson. Although still conforming to traditional comic book styles, Miller infused this first issue with his own film noir style. After this issue, Miller became one of Marvel's rising stars. Miller sketched the roofs of New York in an attempt to give his Daredevil art an authentic feel not commonly seen in superhero comics at the time. One journalist noted, "Daredevil's New York, under Frank's run, became darker and more dangerous than the Spider-Man New York unregistered trademark D seemingly lived in before. New York City itself, particularly Daredevil's Hell's Kitchen neighborhood, became as much a character as the shadowy crime fighter. The stories often took place on the rooftop level, with water towers, pipes and chimneys jutting out to create a skyline reminiscent of German Expressionism's dramatic edges and shadows. However, Sales on Daredevil did not improve, Marvel's management continued to discuss cancellation, and Miller himself almost quit the series, as he disliked Mackenzie's scripts. Miller's fortunes changed with the arrival of Denny Unal as editor. Realizing Miller's unhappiness with the series, and impressed by a backup story he had written, Unal fired Mackenzie so that Miller could try writing the series himself. Miller and Unal would maintain a friendly working relationship throughout his run on the series. With issue number 168, Miller took over full duties as writer and penciler. Sales rose so swiftly that Marvel once again began publishing Daredevil monthly rather than bi-monthly, just 3 issues after Miller came on as writer. Issue number 168 saw the first full appearance of the ninja mercenary Elektra, who would become a popular character and star in a 2005 motion picture, although her first cover appearance was 4 months earlier on Miller's cover of the Comics Journal number 58. Miller later wrote and drew a solo Elektra story in Bizarre Adventures number 28. He also added a martial arts aspect to Daredevil's fighting skills, and introduced previously unseen characters who had played a major part in the character's youth: Stick, leader of the ninja clan The Chaste, who had been Murdoch's sensei after he was blinded, and a rival clan called The Hand. Unable to handle both writing and penciling Daredevil on the new monthly schedule, Miller began increasingly relying on Janson for the artwork, sending him looser and looser pencils beginning with number 173. By issue number 185, Miller had virtually relinquished his role as Daredevil's artist, and was providing only rough layouts for Janson to both pencil and ink, allowing him to focus on the writing. Miller's work on Daredevil was characterized by darker themes and stories. This peaked when in number 181 he had the assassin Bullseye kill Elektra, and Daredevil subsequently attempt to kill him. Miller finished his Daredevil run with issue number 191, which he cited in a winter 1983 interview as the issue he is most proud of. By this time he had transformed a second-tier character into one of Marvel's most popular. Additionally, Miller drew a short Batman Christmas story, Wanted, Santa Claus Dead or Alive, written by Denny Unal for DC Special Series number 21. This was his first professional experience with a character with which, like Daredevil, he would become closely associated. At Marvel, Unal and Miller collaborated on 2 issues of the Amazing Spider-Man annual. The 1980 annual featured a team-up with Doctor Strange, while the 1981 annual showcased a meeting with the Punisher. As penciler and co-plotter, Miller, together with writer Chris Claremont, produced the miniseries Wolverine number 1 4, inked by Joseph Rubinstein and spinning off from the popular X-Men title. Miller used this miniseries to expand on Wolverine's character. The series was a critical success and further cemented Miller's place as an industry star. His first creator-owned title was DC Comics' 6-issue miniseries Ronin. This series shows some of the strongest influences of manga and bande dessinée copyright on Miller's style, both in the artwork and narrative style. In 1985, DC Comics named Miller as one of the honorees in the company's 50th anniversary publication 50 Who Made DC Great. Miller was involved in a few unpublished projects in the early 1980s. A house advertisement for Doctor Strange appeared in Marvel Comics cover dated February 1981. It stated, "Watch for the new adventures of Earth Sorcerer Supreme," was mystically conjured by Roger Stern and Frank Miller. Miller's only contribution to the series would be the cover for Doctor Strange number 46. Other commitments prevented him from working on the series. Miller and Steve Gerber made a proposal to revamp DC's 3 biggest characters, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, under a line called Metropolis, and comics titled Man of Steel, or The Man of Steel, Dark Knight, and Amazon. However, this proposal was not accepted. Batman, The Dark Knight returns in the late 1980s. In 1986, DC Comics released writer-penciler Miller's Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, a 4-issue miniseries printed in what the publisher called prestige format AA square bound, rather than stapled. On heavy stock paper rather than newsprint, and with cardstock rather than glossy paper covers. It was inked by Klaus Janson and colored by Lynn Varley. The story tells how Batman retired after the death of the second Robin, and at age 55 returns to fight crime in a dark and violent future. Miller created a tough, gritty Batman, referring to him as the Dark Knight based upon him being called the Dark Knight Detective in some 1970s portrayals. Released the same year as Alan Moore's and Dave Gibbons' DC miniseries Watchmen, it showcased a new form of more adult-oriented storytelling to both comics fans and a crossover mainstream audience. The Dark Knight Returns influenced the comic book industry by heralding a new wave of darker characters. The trade paperback collection proved to be a big seller for DC and remains in print 25 years after first being published. By this time, Miller had returned as the writer of Daredevil. Following his self-contained story Badlands, penciled by John Buscema, in number 219, he co-wrote number 226 with departing writer Dennis O'Neil. Then, with artist David Mazzucchelli, he crafted a 7-issue story arc that, like The Dark Knight Returns, similarly redefined and reinvigorated its main character. The storyline, Daredevil, Born Again, in number 227 a €233 chronicled the hero's Catholic background, and the destruction and rebirth of his real-life identity, Manhattan attorney Matt Murdock, at the hands of Daredevil's nemesis, the crime lord Wilson Fisk, also known as the Kingpin. After completing the Born Again arc, Frank Miller intended to produce a 2-part story with artist Walt Simonson, but it was never completed and remains unpublished. Miller and artist Bill Sienkiewicz produced the graphic novel Daredevil, Love and War in 1986. Featuring the character of the Kingpin, it indirectly bridges Miller's first run on Daredevil and Born Again by explaining the change in the Kingpin's attitude toward Daredevil. Miller and Sienkiewicz also produced the 8-issue miniseries Elektra, Assassin for Epic Comics. Set outside regular Marvel continuity, it featured a wild tale of cyborgs and ninjas, while expanding further on Elektra's background. Both of these projects were well received critically. Elektra, Assassin was praised for its bold storytelling, but neither it nor Daredevil, Love and War had the influence or reached as many readers as Dark Knight Returns or Born Again. Miller's final major story in this period was in Batman issues 404 a €407 in 1987, another collaboration with Mazzucchelli. Titled Batman, Year One, this was Miller's version of the origin of Batman, in which he retconned many details and adapted the story to fit his Dark Knight continuity. Proving to be hugely popular, this was as influential as Miller's previous work, and a trade paperback released in 1988 remains in print and is one of DC's best-selling books and adapted as an original animated film video in 2011. Miller had also drawn the covers for the first 12 issues of First Comics English-language reprints of Kazuo Koike and Goseki Kojima's Lone Wolf and Cub. This helped bring Japanese manga to a wider Western audience. During this time, Miller had been in dispute with DC Comics over a proposed ratings system for comics. Disagreeing with what he saw as censorship, Miller refused to do any further work for DC, and he would take his future projects to the independent publisher Dark Horse Comics. From then on, Miller would be a major supporter of creator rights and be a major voice against censorship in comics. The 1990s, Sin City and 300. After announcing he intended to release his work only via the independent publisher Dark Horse Comics, Miller completed one final project for Epic Comics, the mature audience imprint of Marvel Comics. Elektra Lives Again was a fully painted graphic novel written and drawn by Miller and colored by longtime partner Lynn Varley. Telling the story of the resurrection of Elektra from the dead and Daredevil's quest to find her, as well as showing Miller's will to experiment with new storytelling techniques. 1990 saw Miller and artist Jeff Darrow start work on Hard Boiled, a 3-issue miniseries. The title, a mix of violence and satire, was praised for Darrow's highly detailed art and Miller's writing. At the same time, Miller and artist Dave Gibbons produced Give Me Liberty, a 4-issue miniseries for Dark Horse. Give Me Liberty was followed by sequel miniseries and specials expanding on the story of protagonist Martha Washington, an African-American woman in modern and near-future southern North America, all of which were written by Miller and drawn by Gibbons. Miller also wrote the scripts for the science fiction films RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3, about a police cyborg. Neither was critically well received. In 2007, Miller stated that there was a lot of interference in the writing process. It wasn't ideal. After working on the 2 RoboCop movies, I really thought that was it for me in the business of film. Miller would come into contact with a fictional cyborg once more, however, writing the comic book miniseries, RoboCop vs. The Terminator, with art by Walter Simonson. In 2003, Miller's screenplay for RoboCop 2 was adapted by Stephen Grant for Avatar Press's Pulsar imprint. Illustrated by Juan Jose Ripe, the series is called Frank Miller's RoboCop and contains plot elements that were divided between RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3. In 1991, Miller started work on his first Sin City story. Serialized in Dark Horse Presents No. 51 €62, Miller wrote and drew the story in black and white to emphasize its film noir origins. Proving to be another success, the story was released in a trade paperback. This first Sin City yarn was re-released in 1995 under the name The Hard Goodbye. Sin City proved to be Miller's main project for much of the remainder of the decade, as Miller told more Sin City stories within this noir world of his creation, in the process helping to revitalize the crime comics genre. Sin City proved artistically auspicious for Miller and again brought his work to a wider audience without comics. Miller lived in Los Angeles, California in the 1990s, which influenced Sin City. Daredevil, The Man Without Fear was a 5-issue miniseries published by Marvel Comics in 1993. In this story, Miller and artist John Romita, Jr. told Daredevil's origins differently from in the previous comics, and provided additional detail to his beginnings. Miller also returned to superheroes by writing issue number 11 of Todd McFarlane's Spawn, as well as the Spawn Batman crossover for Image Comics. In 1995, Miller and Darrow collaborated again on Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot, published as a 2-part miniseries by Dark Horse Comics. In 1999 it became an animated series on Fox Kids. During this period, Miller became one of the founding members of the comic imprint Legend, under which many of his Sin City works were released, via Dark Horse. Also, it was during the 1990s that Miller did cover art for many titles in the comics Greatest World Dark Horse Heroes line. Written and illustrated by Frank Miller with painted colors by Varley, 300 was a 1998 comic book miniseries, released as a hardcover collection in 1999, retelling the Battle of Thermopylae and the events leading up to it from the perspective of Leonidas of Sparta. 300 was particularly inspired by the 1962 film The 300 Spartans, a movie that Miller watched as a young boy. In 2007, 300 was adapted by director Zack Snyder into a successful film. Batman, The Dark Knight Strikes Again. In the 2000s, Miller moved back to Hell's Kitchen by 2001 and was creating Batman, The Dark Knight Strikes Again as the 9/11 terrorist attacks occurred about 4 miles from that neighborhood. His differences with DC Comics put aside, he saw the sequel initially released as a 3-issue miniseries, and though it sold well, it received a mixed to negative reception. Miller also returned to writing Batman in 2005, taking on the writing duties of All-Star Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder, a series set inside of what Miller describes as the Dark Knight universe. And drawn by Jim Lee. Miller has said he opposes naturalism in comic art. In an interview on the documentary Legends of the Dark Knight, The History of Batman, he said, "People are attempting to bring a superficial reality to superheroes which is rather stupid. They work best as the flamboyant fantasies they are. I mean, these are characters that are broad and big. I don't need to see sweat patches under Superman's arms. I want to see him fly." Miller's previous attitude towards movie adaptations was to change after Robert Rodriguez made a short film based on a story from Miller's Sin City entitled The Customer Is Always Right. Miller was pleased with the result, leading to him and Rodriguez directing a full-length film, Sin City, using Miller's original comics panels as storyboards. The film was released in the U.S. on April 1, 2005. The film's success brought renewed attention to Miller's Sin City projects. Similarly, a film adaptation of 300, directed solely by Zack Snyder, brought new attention and controversy to Miller's original comic book work. A sequel to the film, based around Miller's second Sin City series, A Dame to Kill For, will be released in theaters August 22, 2014. Personal life. Until their divorce in 2005, Miller was married to colorist Lynn Varley, who colored many of his most acclaimed works, and the backgrounds to the 2007 movie 300. He has since been romantically linked to New York-based Shakespearean scholar Kimberly Halliburton Cox, who had a cameo in The Spirit. In November 2011, Miller posted remarks pertaining to the Occupy Wall Street movement in his blog, calling it nothing but a pack of louts, thieves, and rapists, and said of the movement, "Wake up, pond scum. America is at war against a ruthless enemy." Maybe, between bouts of self-pity and all the other tasty tidbits of narcissism, Euro unregistered trademark they've been served up in your sheltered, comfy little worlds. Euro unregistered trademark they heard terms like Al-Qaeda and Islamicism. Miller's statement generated controversy. In October 2012, Joanna Gallardo-Mills, who began working for Miller as an executive coordinator in November 2008, filed suit against Miller in Manhattan for discrimination and mental anguish, stating that Miller's girlfriend, Kimberly Cox, created a hostile work environment for Gallardo-Mills in Miller and Cox's Hell's Kitchen living workspace. Critical reaction. Daredevil, Born Again and The Dark Knight Returns were both critical successes and influential on a new generation of creators. Batman, Year One was met with even greater praise for its gritty style. Works such as Ronin, 300 and Sin City were also very successful. However, fellow comic book writer Alan Moore has described Miller's work from Sin City onwards as homophobic and misogynistic, despite praising his early Batman and Daredevil work. Moore previously penned a flattering introduction to an early collected edition of The Dark Knight Returns. Batman, The Dark Knight Strikes Again, a sequel to The Dark Knight Returns, received mixed reviews, while All-Star Batman and Robin the Boy Wonder in particular consistently received harsh criticism and was hailed as a sign of Miller's creative decline. The filmatization of 300 has been perceived as promoting fascist values, as denigrating Iranians, and as hate speech against disabled people. Holy Terror has been accused of being anti-Islamic propaganda. In addition, some of Miller's works have been accused of lacking humanity, particularly in regard to the abundance of prostitutes portrayed in Sin City. In terms of his film work, Miller's scripts for RoboCop 2 and 3 were unsuccessful, while his 2008 film adaptation of Will Eisner's The Spirit met with largely negative reviews, earning a Metascore of 30/100 at the review aggregation site Metacritic.com. Cameo appearances. Frank Miller has appeared in 5 films in small, cameo roles, dying in each. In RoboCop 2, he plays Frank, the chemist, and dies in an explosion in an illegal drug lab. In Jugular Wine, A Vampire Odyssey, he is killed by vampires in front of Marvel Comics' Stan Lee. In Daredevil, he appears as a corpse with a pen in his head, thrown by Bullseye, who steals his motorcycle. The credits list Frank Miller as Man with Pen and Head. In Sin City, he plays the priest killed by Marv in the confessional. In The Spirit, which was written and directed by Miller, he appears as Leibowitz, the officer whose head is ripped off by the octopus and thrown at the Spirit. The name alludes to Jack Leibowitz, a co-founder of what would become DC Comics. Bibliography: DC Comics, Weird War Tales, Deliver Me from D-Day, The Greatest Story Never Told, The Day After Doomsday. Unknown Soldier No. 219, The Edge of History, Batman, The Greatest Stories Ever Told Volume 1 includes, DC Special Series No. 21, Wanted, Santa Claus Dead or Alive. Absolute Dark Knight collects, Batman The Dark Knight Returns No. 1-4, Batman, The Dark Knight Strikes Again No. 1-3. Batman, Year One collects, Batman No. 404-407. All-Star Batman and Robin, The Boy Wonder No. 1-10 issues No. 1-9 collected as Volume 1, Dark Knight, Boy Wonder No. 1-6. Ronin number 1-6 collected as Ronin, Superman number 400, The Living Legends of Superman, Fanboy number 5 collected and Fanboy, Superman and Batman, World's Funniest, Last Imp Standing. Orion number 3, Tales of the New Gods, Nativity collected in O, The Gates of Apocalypse, Marvel Comics, John Carter, Warlord of Mars number 18, Meanwhile, Back in Helium. Collected in Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter, Warlord of Mars and John Carter, Warlord of Mars Omnibus, The Complete Frank Miller Spider-Man Collects, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 27-28 The Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 14-15, Marvel Team Up, Introducing, Karma. Power Play. Marvel 2-in-1 number 51, Full House, Dragon's High. Collected in Essential Marvel 2-in-1 Volume 2, Daredevil, Daredevil by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson Omnibus Collects, A Grave Mistake, Marked for Death, Blind Alley, Exposure Copyright, Arms of the Octopus, Till Death Do Us Part. The Mauler. Elektra, Devils, Gangwars, The Assassination of Matt Murdock, Hunters, Paper Chase, Last Hand, Child's Play, Guts and Stilts, Widow's Bite, Roulette. Daredevil Omnibus Companion includes, Badlands, Warriors, Born Again, Daredevil, Love and War, Daredevil, The Man Without Fear number 1-5. Elektra by Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz collects, entitled, What If Bullseye Had Not Killed Elektra? Elektra, Assassin number 1-8, Elektra Lives Again. Marvel Spotlight number 8, Planet Where Time Stood Still. Marvel Preview number 23, Final Warning, Power Man and Iron Fist number 76, Death Scream of the Warhawk. Bizarre Adventures number 31, The Philistine, Fantastic Four Roast, What If? Number 34, What If Daredevil Were Deaf Instead of Blind? Wolverine number 1-4 collected as Wolverine, Incredible Hulk Annual number 11, Unless Unchained, Marvel Fanfare number 18, Home Fires. Sensational She-Hulk number 50, He's Dead? Dark Horse Comics, The Life and Times of Martha Washington in the 21st Century collects, Give Me Liberty number 1-4 also collected as Give Me Liberty, Martha Washington Goes to War number 1-5 also collected as MWGTW, Happy Birthday, Martha Washington Stranded in Space, Martha Washington Saves the World number 1-3 also collected as MWSTW, Martha Washington Dies, 2095. Hard-Boiled number 1-3 collected as Hard-Boiled, Sin City collects, Episode 1, Episodes 2-13. A Dame to Kill for collects, A Dame to Kill for number 1-6. The Big Fat Kill collects, The Big Fat Kill number 1-5. That Yellow Bastard collects, That Yellow Bastard number 1-6. Family Values, Booze, Broads, and Bullets collects, Just Another Saturday Night, Fat Man and Little Boy, The Customer Is Always Right, Silent Night, and Behind Door number 3. Blue Eyes, Rats, Daddy's Little Girl, Sex and Violence, The Babe Wore Red. Hell and Back collects, Hell and Back, A Sin City Love Story number 1-9. RoboCop vs. The Terminator number 1-4 Madman Comics number 6-7 collected in Madman Volume 2, The Big Guy and Rusty the Boy Robot number 1-2 collected as TBG and RTBR, Dark Horse Presents, Lance Blastoff. Lance Blastoff, America's Favorite Hero. 300 number 1-5 collected as 300, Dark Horse Maverick 2000, Mercy. 9-11 Volume 1, entitled, Dark Horse Maverick, Happy Endings, The End, Autobiographiques, Man with Pen and Head, Usagi Yojimbo number 100 collected in UI, Bridge of Tears, Other Publishers, Twilight Zone, Mike Royal Feast, Endless Cloud. Ms. Tree number 1-4, Frank Miller's famous detective pin-up, Strip AIDS USA Robo-Homophobe. AARGH. Number 1, The Future of Law Enforcement, Spawn, Home Story collected in Spawn, Dark Discoveries, Spawn Batman. Bad Boy, Holy Terror, cover work, Marvel Premiere number 49, 53 to 54, 58 Marvel Spotlight number 2, 5, 7 Uncanny X-Men Annual number 3 Marvel Super Special number 14 Room Spash Night number 1, 3, 17 to 18 The Avengers number 193 Captain America number 241, 245, 255, Annual number 5 The Amazing Spider-Man number 203, 218 to 219 Marvel Team Up number 95, 99, 102, 106, Annual number 3 Star Trek number 5. 10 The Spectacular Spider-Man number 46, 48, 50 to 52, 54 to 57, 60 Spider-Woman number 31-32, Power Man and Iron Fist number 66, 68, 70 to 74 Machine Man number 19 Doctor Strange number 46 Star Wars number 47 The Incredible Hulk number 258, 261, 264, 268 Micronauts number 31 Moon Knight number 9, 12, 15, 27, What If? Number 27 Ghost Rider number 59 Amazing Heroes number 4, 25, 69 Marvel Fanfare number 1, World's Finest Comics number 285 Wonder Woman number 298, Spider-Man and Daredevil Special Edition, The New Adventures of Superboy number 51, Batman and the Outsiders Annual number 1 Destroyer Duck number 7, Superman, The Secret Years number 1-4, Amazing Man number 12, Anything Goes. Number 2, Lone Wolf and Cub number 1-12 Death Rattle number 18 Eternal Warrior number 1, Archer and Armstrong number 1 Magnus, Robot Fighter number 15 Exo Manowar number 7 Shadowman number 4 number 6 Harbinger number 8, Solar, Man of the Atom number 12, Comics Greatest World, Arcadia number 1, John Byrne's Next Men number 17 Marvel Age number 127, Comics Greatest World, Vortex number 4 Zorro number 1, X, One Shot to the Head number 4, Medal of Honor number 4, Mickey Spillane Mike Danger number 1 Prophet number 2, X number 18 to 22, G.I. Joe number 1, Batman, Black and White number 2 Dark Horse Presents number 115 Heavy Metal number 183 Bow number 38 Spawn number 100 Green Lantern Superman, Legend of the Green Flame number 1, Dark Horse Maverick 2001 The Escapists number 1 Jurassic Park number 1 Dark Horse Presents number 1 The Creep number 0, Detective Comics Volume 2, number 27, Films, RoboCop 2 Miller's original script was heavily edited through rewrites as it was deemed unfilmable. The original script was adapted in 2003 by Stephen Grant into the comic series, Frank Miller's RoboCop. RoboCop 3 Miller co-wrote this with the film's director Fred Dekker. The original script is being adapted in 2013 2014 by Stephen Grant into the comic series, RoboCop, Last Stand. Batman, This was co-written and was due to be directed by Darren Aronofsky until Warner Brothers cancelled the project opting for Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. In 2011 it was finally adapted into an animated film, produced by Bruce Timm, resulting in a direct-to-video DVD and Blu-ray released in October. Sin City, The Spirit Although Miller co-directed Sin City, this is his first solo directing project. Sin City, A Dame to Kill for in 2005, after Sin City was released, Robert Rodriguez announced plans for a follow-up film that would feature many of the same characters. He planned for the film to be based on A Dame to Kill For. Miller said the film would be a prequel and a sequel with interlinking stories both before and after the first film. Miller, who was writing the screenplay in 2006, had anticipated for production to begin later in the year. Miller was a producer for the film 300, which was adapted shot for shot into a feature film in 2007. The 2003 film version of Daredevil predominantly used the tone established and stories written by Miller, who had no direct creative input on the film. A two-part direct-to-DVD animated movie based on The Dark Knight Returns was released in 2012 and 2013 respectively. The Wolverine, released in 2013, was based on the 1982 Wolverine miniseries that Miller penciled with writer Chris Claremont. Awards, Eisner Awards, Best Short Story Euro 1995 The Babe Wore Red, in Sin City, The Babe Wore Red and Other Stories, Best Finite Series Limited Series Euro 1991 Give Me Liberty, 1995 Sin City, A Dame to Kill For, 1996 Sin City, The Big Fat Kill, 1999 300, Best Graphic Album, New Euro 1991 Elektra Lives Again, Best Graphic Album, reprint Euro 1993 Sin City, 1998 Sin City, That Yellow Bastard, Best Writer Artist Euro 1991 for Elektra Lives Again, 1993 for Sin City, 1999 for 300, Best Artist Inker or Penciler Inker Team Euro 1993 for Sin City, Kirby Awards, Best Single Issue Euro 1986 Daredevil No. 227 Apocalypse, 1987 Batman, The Dark Knight Returns No. 1 The Dark Knight Returns, Best Graphic Album, 1987 Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, Best Writer Artist Euro 1986 Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli, for Daredevil, Born Again, Best Art Team Euro 1987. Frank Miller, Klaus Janson and Lynn Varley, for Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, Harvey Awards, Best Continuing or Limited Series Euro 1996 Sin City, 1999 300, Best Graphic Album of Original Work Euro 1998 Sin City, Family Values, Best Domestic Reprint Project Euro 1997 Batman, The Dark Knight Returns, 10th Anniversary Edition, Cannes Film Festival, Palme d'Or Euro 2005 Sin City, Scream Awards, The Comic-Con Icon Award Euro 2006, References. External links. Official website, Frank Miller at the Comic Book DB, The Complete Works of Frank Miller at the Internet Movie Database, Frank Miller at the Unofficial Handbook of Marvel Comics Creators, Frank Miller at DMOZ.